Oh, forgive me, Internet, for I have sinned. I have only now experienced the nonsensical genius that is Mark M. Although that's not entirely true, as something I've begun to realize with these last two videos I've done on underrated artists who've worked on Smiling Friends is that they seem to have been omnipresent in my life. I mean, seriously, at this point, I half expect Zach to appear behind me while editing these videos, full on nothing personal kid style, only to tell me he's been there since the day I was born.
Every single thing that's happened to you over the last 24 hours was orchestrated by me and my insane mind.
I mean, damn, it feels like just about every collaboration on Smiling Friends is with somebody whose videos I've at least seen once or twice. However, while Michael Cusack was an animator I actively sought out during the golden age of YouTube videos that were animated, Mark M was somebody whom I'd never truly watched out of any interest in particular. No, Mark M's videos had largely been something I watched entirely by accident. Well, at least that goes for his later work, but when it comes to his early stuff, specifically one animation stuck out to me as a memorable part of his early catalog of animation, which in conducting research for this video, I actually found while looking up his YouTube channel. I didn't even realize that I'd seen a video by him until I noticed that the profile picture he was using was of exactly Sprankton, a noun, which was the first and only video of Mark M's that I'd actually seen for many years. But it kickstarted my appreciation for absurdist, absolutely unhinged animation and comedy online.
Quick reminder to be sure to like and subscribe to Mr. Boone. Also ring that bell for more Smiling Friends related content. It's a small act of kindness from you, but to this humble gremlin of a channel runner, it means the world.
For someone who had only heard their name this year following the release of Episode 1, Season 2, Mark M is genuinely impressive. I don't think it's a controversial take to say that perhaps the best character in Smiling Friends is undoubtedly Mr. Boss. Perhaps it's because Mr. Boss isn't a near stand-in for himself like Pim and Charlie are for Michael and Zach, because he fully commits to the role at all vocal ranges. Mr. Boss is one of the most versatile and unhinged characters in the entire show. This is in no small part due to Mark's range of vocals, which I can only assume come from his many years of voicing and animating bizarre characters on his channel, Sick Animations.
There it is again. Let's go, Charlie.
Each episode featuring Mr. Boss is often chock full of memeable moments, both visually and due to the level of insanity Mark portrays with the character. Every scene he's in, he practically begs for the audience's attention, as he basically chews up the scenery, going from insane Mr. Boss, super sweet Mr. Boss, and everything in between Mr. Boss.
Man, I was just gonna shoot you in the head and kill you.
While Zach might be a living cartoon, Mark had to hone his voice by doing just about every character imaginable to complete his animations. He's simply built different. So it's no wonder that Mr. Boss is as delightfully unhinged as he is. That's precisely what you'd expect from an animator and voice actor who has voiced as many characters as he has online. And yet, to say that Mark M is severely underrated for the level of his output would be an understatement, to say the least. Not only does the man have a plethora of animations uploaded, but he has also voiced and worked on numerous projects outside of his own. From the less beloved Uncle Grandpa to Cyanide and Happiness, Adult Swim's Crackers, and now the greatly popular Smiling Friends Mr. Boss. He's an absolute one-man band of talent. With all these projects, he's shown exactly what he can do. Be a damn funny voice actor that catches you off guard every time he shows up. And despite as much as he's known online through his animations, he's remained relatively unknown outside of animation circles. With 14 years of animation education, Mark M set out to be an exceptionally creative individual, and he mostly succeeded, never limiting himself to just one pursuit. He worked with 20th Century Fox on a one-time project that didn't really lead anywhere, unfortunately, produced a series of TV bumpers for Adult Swim, And much like Michael Cusack, produced special animations for Rick and Morty. He has collaborated with the once juggernaut of comedy, National Lampoon, and even sold a pilot for the Sick animation show to both the UK network and Comedy Central. And as if that wasn't enough, Mark M has even released several albums and collaborated with the editor of Tim and Eric, Doughpound. Each album with its own distinct style reminiscent of a proto-Pink Guy. So think kind of a mix between Ween and Lemon Demon. He's been tirelessly producing work sustained by Patreon and freelance gigs. A genuine feat considering he often made only $100 a month from his YouTube videos. But that is largely due to the platform becoming more challenging for animators due to stricter censorship and monetization policies, of which Michael Cusack and Zach have also suffered from. And while he did work on a short series on Adult Swim, it's funny to know he's reached a far larger audience with his work as Mr. Boss, despite having said things like this.
You never did stuff for Adult Swim?
I've never done anything for Adult Swim as of...
But maybe you will.
Yeah.
We'll move on from there.
And in the one extensive article I could find on him, the Meme Insider, oh geez, he even stated he hasn't really had a big break yet. But I think it's fair to say he might have finally landed it based on how much everyone seems to cheer his name in the comments of every Smiling Friends video on YouTube featuring Mr. Boss. With all that said though, how's his animation? Well, Mark's style, although perhaps not as visually distinct as Michael's or Zach's, is still full of genuine charm. It feels like the missing link between the two actually. Visually absurd and stylized, yet at times absolutely incredibly lifelike and uncanny. A good example being in Brothers Egg, where his first animation cameo credit was with the two Goblin brothers. The moment these two show up, I knew somebody else other than Michael had to have been the one to animate it. Little did I know, it was the guy who animated a video I spent years laughing at. Silly animation whose focus was on a word that I still to this day don't actually know if it truly exists, and a goth dog getting whipped for looking like a goth in front of its owner. Yeah, 2005 was pretty wild, man. Interestingly, this wasn't the only hugely popular animation Mark created. As I found out through looking up his Instagram, a pinned video on the top was actually perhaps one of the funniest, most wildly shared GIFs online featuring Ninja Turtles from his animation, Green Lovers. It's probably impossible for me to count how many times I've seen this specific segment shared on Instagram in response to a catchy song, alongside animations like the Winnie the Pooh and Ariel one. It's truly astonishing how much exposure I've had to Mark's work. I wouldn't be surprised if I'd watched several of his short animations on Newgrounds too, as I often visited the front page in search of the next Return of Ganondorf. And the reason I feel like I likely was exposed to some of his other animations at the time was because in the Meme Insider article I mentioned previously, Mark had actually mentioned that Tom Fulp, the founder of Newgrounds, frequently featured his animation. So as a bright-eyed dumbass kid at the time in 2005 and 6, I undoubtedly pressed play on many of his animations as I'd constantly browse for anything I could find funny. And even though none of Sick Animation's videos reached the level of the viewership of Zach, it's undeniable that Mark has had a huge influence on people like even Zach and Michael. They've even stated that many of their influences came from his early bizarre animations. As I said earlier, something as simple and stupid as Sprankton still echoes in my head like the character in the animation. That's just a simple example of how influential Mark M's work is. He's a goddamn talented artist who leaves a mark on you from behind the shadows. That's the most fascinating takeaway from all my research on Smiling Friends, to look back at where it all began, with a stupid goth dog animation being whipped by its owner, and see the underrated genius of Mark M.
Started with a pen and dream, drawing shadows dark and lean. Gothic dog you never seen, Mark M's world unseen. Sketches turned to frames so bold, lines of life with stories told. From the small screen to the gold, now his tale unfolds. From goth dog to Smiling Friends, and the mayor's hand ascends. #1 the journey bends. Mark dark and the story never ends.
The thing that you learn about this is it doesn't really matter what the lyrics are. You'll tap your foot like, it hit me.